friends. It is Jen Bach, and I am doing my very first streaming to YouTube. And as you can tell, I'm kind of figuring it out here. So, welcome to my channel by the Shore Stamping. I'm located on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, and I have been paper crafting and stamping for over 16 years now. And so I thought today for my Tuesday video, I would go live. And of course, I did not plan this, which is why I still look like I'm in my pajamas because it was supposed to be a stamp behind the scenes kind of day. But today I wanted to just, you know what, sometimes when we try something new, we just have to jump in and do it, right? So that's what I'm doing today. We're just jumping in and we're just doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and put my video up on my phone, or on my computer rather, so I can actually see if anybody's here watching me live and see if there's any comments, if I can even see that. I'm not sure. Like I said, this is brand new for me. So let's go ahead, turn my camera around, and we'll start some stamping. So, okay, if you're watching, go ahead and give me a shout. Let me know where you're watching from. I'm gonna get us set up really quick so that you guys can see. Perfect. So yeah, welcome in to my very first live streaming. I didn't think it would actually go live so quickly. I thought it was like a delay or something, but it's not. It's live right now. So I am actually going to be featuring a stamp set and bundle, I should say. It's not a bundle anymore, but it's a stamp set and die set from Stampin' Up, which is the company that I usually use, and I actually am a demonstrator for. But this bundle, or this die and stamp set, are actually retiring, and they're my two very favorites from the retiring catalog, because I love this stamp for both card making and for scrapbooking, and this die set is perfect for both as well. So I am actually keeping this in my stash because I love them for scrapping. So if you're a scrapbooker, this is a really great one for titles. Like, it has some really great label kind of sentiment holder type shapes, or you can use it for card making too. So I will definitely be keeping this. I love that some of them are stitched. That's always a cool component for me. And then of course it has the coordinating stamp set as well. So let's go ahead and do a quick little card with this. So I'm going to actually do a watercolor wash, and we're going to do like embossed resist at the same time. So let me get my bone folder, and I apologize if you guys can hear my wind here. It's super windy. Like I said at the beginning, I'm on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. So we just got a little windstorm, rainstorm overnight last night, and the wind has kind of been sticking around. So we are having some windy situations out there. So this is just jade cardstock. This is actually a cardstock that's retiring as well. The ink is also retiring. So if that's a color you like, or you have some of, you may want to stock up on that. I'm using our shimmery white cardstock. I'm not sure if it will come through on the camera, but there's kind of a shimmer, a sheen to this paper, and it's a little bit thicker than our basic white cardstock, which means when I do the emboss resist, it will hold up to that really well. So the first step of emboss resist is actually to get your embossed part done. So in this case, I'm going to use our our white embossing powder and some Versamark ink, and then I'm going to grab the stamp set and I'm going to use the feather to emboss with. So the other thing we'll need to do is we'll need a block. So let me grab that so we have something to stamp with. So I'm just going to pick up my stamp with my block, and then we're going to start stamping this leaf pattern kind of all in an all over pattern. Okay, so I like to, when I'm doing like a random all over pattern, I like to kind of switch the stamp around a little bit. As I stamp, you won't be able to really see most likely what I'm stamping, because it's kind of like, it's like a watermark ink. Versamark is just a watermark stamp pad. So it doesn't really have much color, but once we do the embossing part, you'll see that. So I'm gonna go ahead and start stamping my feather. And as I said, you probably won't be able to see it. I can barely see it actually. So I'm just gonna sort of rotate the leaf around, or the feather around a little bit. So it's kind of an all over pattern. And you do want to do this part somewhat quickly, because this is the reason why this works is because it's not an instant dry ink. So we want to make sure we get all of these done quickly, so then the powder will adhere to it. Okay, so I'm just going to do that one this way, and then we'll just add another one over here like that. Okay, now I'm gonna, like I said, somewhat quickly go ahead and sprinkle some powder on here. Before I do that, I'm gonna really quick grab another piece of paper because I don't want all this powder all over my workstation. So I'm gonna just go ahead, sprinkle this, and I'm pretty generous with it because we're gonna put all the excess back in our little tub here. So we want to make sure everything's covered, and since I can't really see the stamped images, it's just easier to kind of cover the whole paper, right? So I'm going to go ahead and tap this off. I probably should have used my embossing buddy to take the static out of the paper first, which I did not. So you might be able to see now there's some little bit of excess powder right here. So I'm just going to take that off with my finger, give it a little tweak. You do want to be very careful not to wipe this. I don't know if you guys can see because it's white. I don't know if you can see the feather images yet, but if I was to wipe my finger over this, it would take it off. So I have to be very careful until I've heat set it that I don't touch it. So I'm going to set that aside while we clean up the workstation. So like I said, I didn't want a whole bunch of powder on my workstation, so I'm just going to funnel it right back in carefully to my tub of embossing powder. And then I'm going to just put the cover on that so we don't have any accidents. We'll take that out of the way, and I'm just going to kind of wipe off any of that. Okay, so now I want to heat set this so that my feathers will pop out of that paper. So we've used white embossing powder. So I'm just going to use the end of my Take Your Pick tool. And I have the Stampin' Up! Heat tool here. I'm going to use the higher setting, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set that. Hey Linda, thanks for watching. We're going to go ahead and heat set this. I'm actually doing it live today, Linda, so I can actually interact with you while you're here. So it does take it a couple of minutes for the heat gun to warm up, but once it does, you'll see this kind of turn pretty quickly. See how that feather is now turning like a brighter white? That is the heat embossing. You don't want to stay in one spot too long, but I find like I hover over one spot till it melts and then I move, rather than doing this, because I feel like it goes a little bit faster this way. So I just kind of wait for it to start to turn. Like I said, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's pretty magical in real life. It was one of the things that first turned me on to stamping. I thought it was so cool to have like foil. It's almost like the foil that's on like Hallmark cards and stuff like that. It's very similar to that, and I thought that was a really neat thing to be able to do on my own with just some paper and ink and a couple of tools. So one of the first things I learned how to do, and one of the things I love to do the most. So I'm just gonna finish doing this. We're almost done here. Thanks for hanging with me. I could have done it in advance, but I do like the magic of this. I don't know that you can really see it, but I'll show you in a second. I'm watching on the computer and you can't really see it, unfortunately. If I had used a different color, it would have worked. But I will tell you that you'll see it pop in a second. So let's go ahead and actually I can see that I missed a little spot right there. So I'm just gonna let that turn. Stay put. There it goes. Okay, so now everything looks shiny and I can show you, so hopefully you'll be able to see it on the camera here. So see how it's sort of embossed. Can you see that a little bit? A little bit. But now we're going to make those really pop. So I'm going to take one of my water painters, which these are just some like open barreled paintbrushes that you put water in. You could put like ink refill and water in there too, but I'm just using water. I'm going to make sure it's a little bit wet, I do want to make it sure it's clean. So it looks green, but I've used it already, so it's good. It's just cleaned off. And then I'm going to take my Just Jade ink pad, I'm going to squeeze the cover together here and get a little bit of ink on the actual cover of the ink pad. Okay, so you can see that there. And now I'm going to go ahead and pick up some of that green ink, blot some of that off, and I'm just going to do an all over watercolor wash. And this is where you're going to start to see the ink really shine through. I'm dropping a little bit of water in here because I want it a little bit more runny. Okay, so you want it to be a wet paintbrush, otherwise it's going to give you that streaky look, and that's not the look I'm going for. So we're going to just keep making sure we're grabbing some of that wet ink and just work our way down the page. And I'm not going to make it super, like, I'm not going to be really, what's the word I'm looking for? Meticulous about, you know, getting every spot. I'm just kind of working my way down. This is going to make the cardstock warp a little, but as it dries, it will flatten back out, so don't worry. I think I need a little more ink, so let me just squeeze this again. Okay, squeeze, 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 and then we'll add some more water. So I'm just squeezing the barrel of my paintbrush to get a little bit of water in there, and then we'll pick that up. Okay, now it's a little bit darker, so I might run a little bit more dark streaks through the top here too, so it kind of looks a little bit more consistent. There we go. This is really fun. It's like, I don't know, it feels like grade school art class. I love it. Okay, so we'll just do that. I'm gonna do a little bit more at the top because there seems to be like a little hole there. There we go. Okay. And there we go. Got the nice watercolor wash. I can put this aside for the minute. I'm gonna let this dry. So let me just run some of the ink out of here. Okay, so while that dries, I'm gonna set that aside, and I'm gonna grab a piece of scrap paper, and we'll use some old olive ink with the little leaf image here. And I will stamp that a couple of times in old olive. Okay. And there's one. My ink is a little bit uneven here. It needs to be refilled, I think. And then I'm going to just fussy cut that a little bit. And I don't mind that the color is a little bit darker in some spots and lighter in others. We're going to go ahead and fussy cut this, you guys. So that will take me a second. It will also give that piece of paper that we did a minute ago a chance to dry. So I'm just going to fussy cut this relatively quickly, hopefully. I could have done this in advance, but I honestly thought there was a die in there for it, which there's not. So it's fine. I don't mind fussy cutting. If you do not like to fussy cut, you could totally skip this part too. I think the card would be fine without it too. So we're gonna just do a quick little cut around this guy. You'll notice that I'm using small ended or short tipped scissors, and I'm also moving my paper and not my scissors for the most part. That just gives you a little bit more control, and it makes it go a little bit faster because it's easier to do that. So I'm just moving this around my leaf here. So, whoops, I kind of cut off a little bit off of that. I don't have my glasses on, which is probably a mistake, but it'll be fine. All right, so I'm gonna just skip that little part in there, and we'll just keep going here. Again, not being super meticulous about this, just getting it cut. Okay, if you're watching, I'd love to know where you're watching from. I know Linda is watching in Idaho, so that is awesome. Like I said earlier, I am on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, And it is actually relatively warm. It's 57 outside, but the wind is very cold and it's very windy, so it feels a little bit chillier than that. But the wind is dying down. Like I said, the storm, we had like a little bit of a storm overnight, a wind rain storm, and it is now kind of moving offshore, so it's getting a little bit less windy and therefore less cold, which is good. Maybe the dog will get a walk later today, we'll see. Although we got lots to do. I've got to finish this video and send out an email to my customers, and then we're gonna do I gotta design an exclusive class for my Shore Club members. So if you don't know what Shore Club is, it is my little membership program where I do exclusive classes, exclusive tutorials, some fun Zoom sessions with them each month. So I have to get that done and posted, and also have to work on a swap for my team. So lots to do today, which is why I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try and go live on YouTube, because it will cut out a step of my process, because normally I would record the video and then upload it to YouTube and then, you know, create the thumbnail and then have to send it out and stuff. So this is a little bit faster. So there you go. There's one. I probably should have cut these in advance because I gotta do another one, which hopefully we can get done here quickly. And then we're gonna do a little crumpling, which I know sends fear in a lot of people's hearts when they're crafting. I'm gonna crumple up some of my paper and give it a little bit of texture. It can feel scary, but I promise you can't break it. So we'll do that. And then we'll do a little stamping on our layered piece that we did, the watercolor wash piece. And then we'll put our card together. So we're just about done once I've got this under control. So just bear with me for one more second. If I was thinking ahead, I would have cut this in advance. But again, I thought it was a die cut. Silly me. All right. Do this. Okay. I'm just gonna cheat and not go all the way in there. And we'll cut around this. Are you guys fans of the home edit? I've been watching that today while I've been designing, and I just love, it makes me want to go organize all the things. It's just, yeah, it's just speaks to my heart. Even though I'm not the neatest or most organized person, I actually can be, and I love the way a nice organized room looks. It just makes me happy. So now I'm inspired to buy all the containers and revamp my craft space, right? Those of you that are maybe new to my channel, I actually have a studio where I do all my business stuff. So I have a separate art studio outside of my house. I used to do everything in my house, but it was actually in my bedroom, and I was spending so much time in there that I ended up renting a little space at my church so that I can have kind of like a legitimate office that I go to every day, because doing this is my full-time job. So it is my work. So I needed to have a place that was distraction-free, laundry-free, dishwashing-free, all that stuff. So it's very good to be able to have that little space and have the separation between work and home life too. Although I will say I miss my little pups most days. She's at home because she can come here, but she's a little bit rambunctious. She's still only a year and a half, so she's a little bit goofy. All right, so now that we've finished that, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of stamping with the Just Jade ink. I'm gonna grab another one of these. I'm gonna use that same stamp set. So lots of uses for this. And I'm gonna go ahead and stamp using the Just Jade ink. Because I did this as a watercolor wash, it's going to be a little bit darker when I stamp it. So I'm going to do this like that. And I'm really only going to have that top part that's showing, so that's totally fine. And then I'm actually going to have it kind of peek out this way too, like that. So I'm going to put a sentiment over this so you won't see any of that. and then we're also going to layer in these. So I'm going to put these kind of down like this and that. And we're going to take the, this is a piece of Bumblebee cardstock. It is about 1.25 inches by 4 inches. And this is where I said I'm going to go ahead and kind of give you some heart palpitations maybe if you don't like to do this, but I'm going to crumple this up into a little ball. It's just going to give it some texture and a little, whoop, as I fling it, a little bit of depth to your project. So this is a great technique to use because you don't need any other supplies, right? So just adding a little bit of texture to that. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and cut a little banner end on both sides here. Okay, and I'll do that over here as well. Little bit of a banner. I just snip in the middle and then go from corner to center. You could use one of our little banner punches too. Okay, so then that's gonna go over like this. And then we're gonna go ahead and put a sentiment on here too. So you can see you'll only end up seeing a little bit of that stamping, which is what I wanted. I just wanted it to kind of peek out a little bit. Let me find my tape. There we go. So I'm going to just add a little bit of tape to this. And I'm using our Stampin' Seal Plus. So it has like little, I don't know if you can see that, it's got little pieces here that I can fold over because I kind of went over the edge. I don't want any of the adhesive to show. And then I'm just going to kind of tuck that up here, and then we'll put this one down here as well, kind of over here maybe. And then I'm going to use a little bit of, whoops, I put this on there when it was still, I put it over the feather and it was a little bit wet, but I'm okay with that. That's on the back side. There is a little bit there, but that will probably get covered by the sentiment anyway, so I'm not worried. I'm gonna just kind of stick that down so it's kind of lifted on the edges because I want it to have that like depth and dimension. And while it's still here, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add extra adhesive to the edges. So, because as you can see, it's still kind of curling up a little bit. So I wanna make sure it stays fully attached to my card and doesn't fall off in the mail or with any opening and closing. So I'm just adding a little bit of extra adhesive than I normally would. And then I'm going to stick this down. Okay, like so. And then, whoops, that was not very, now I put extra adhesive on there. So see how that's kind of longer than this side? I'm going to sheet because I want it to be even, and I'm just going to cut it down on the bottom there. Nobody will know the wiser. It'll be a little bit smaller than the envelope, but that's totally fine. Okay, so there's that part. Super cute. I'm going to set that aside, and we're going to do our sentiment, which I'm just going to stamp on a scrap piece here. And I'll do the "You Are So Special." I think that's a good one to do. And let's see if I have another block I can use. We'll use this one. That'll fit. And we'll use, let's go ahead and use like a soft suede, I think will be good. Any neutral color, black, brown, whatever you want to use. I'm going to stamp it kind of in the middle because I'm going to die cut it with the labels. Oops. This one is very light. So maybe, you know what I'll do? Apparently the soft suede needs some more ink. So let's grab Early Espresso instead. It's a little bit darker anyway. So I'll flip this over so I don't waste the piece of cardstock. We'll stamp that like so. That's better. And then I'm going to use those dies that I showed you. So remember, this is the Tasteful Labels dies. So I'm going to use one of these to cut that out. Let's use maybe this one. I think that will work good. Although this one's one of my favorites too. But I think that one's not as wide as that yellow panel. So let's do this one. And I'm going to run this through my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss. And we'll die cut that out. So let's go ahead and stick that on here. We'll get that centered, hopefully. And then we'll stick this on top and roll that through. Okay. And I'm going to pop it out, and we've got our sentiment. So now I can move this out of the way. I'm going to pop this up with some Stampin Dimensionals on my card. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll grab some of these. I like to do one in each corner. I don't necessarily need one in the middle, but I'm going to put one in the middle anyway. I don't like when you send the card and then like the sentiment kind of sags in the middle. So, all right, so then I'm going to put this here. Okay, I love like the starkness between that bright white and then the less bright here. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit of twine just for a little bit of texture. Some more texture, I should say, because we have that crumpled paper that adds to our texture as well. In general, I like to add ribbon of some sort or twine and some embellishments to almost all of my projects. I'm going to leave the ends of this a little bit longer, and we will attach this with a mini glue dot. So, oh, thanks, Opal. I'm glad you like it. It's kind of a artsy-fartsy card, which I like. It's got a little bit of, it's more involved. It's got some fun messiness to it, which I like to do sometimes, but it will make for a really nice finished product for that special recipient, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just attach that down here in the corner. And then, of course, like I said, I like to add a little bit of bling. I'm kind of positioning that the way I want. And we'll add, I have some of these iridescent rhinestones, which are very pretty. So I'm going to add a couple of those. I kind of wish I had a few of the small ones, but I've used them all, as you can see. So we'll just add the bigger ones. It's fine. I think these really pull out that green color nicely. So I'm just going to put a couple up there and then maybe one down here. I always like to use my embellishments in threes so that it's in odd numbers, I should say, not necessarily in threes. And there you go. We have a finished card all ready to give. The only other thing I might do is I would put a white piece inside, 4 by 5 1/4, and that would allow you to either stamp on it or you could just handwrite if you wanted to do too. So there you go. Thanks so much for joining me for my very first live YouTube video. Hopefully I'll do some more of those and give you a little bit more warning that I plan to do that, because like I said, it was totally not planned today, but I just felt the need to do it and do it scared, right? Because I was like, I go live on Facebook all the time, but for some reason I hadn't done it on YouTube. So thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, please go ahead and click that like button below. And if you really want to make my day, go ahead and subscribe. And hopefully I'll see you again here next week. Have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.